I almost had a huge screw up this week at my public speaking workshop. I'm Bruce Rule, and I'm a writer and editor, and I recently published a book called Heartfelt Goodbye, How to Write and Deliver the Eulogy Your Loved One Deserves. And I'm thriving in the gig economy, and I'm hoping to pass along tips every week to those of you who are also trying to do well in the freelance world. This was a public speaking workshop I got in part because of this book. This book came out and I promoted it on LinkedIn, and a LinkedIn connection said, "Hey, that's right, you teach public speaking. Why don't I put you in touch with my employee resources group? They're looking for people to do training on webinars." Monday I was going to do a webinar on effective communication for people in this company. What I always recommend in every public speaking workshop I do is always check your equipment beforehand. So when the moderator and I talked about what time the meeting was going to be, he said he would get on 15 minutes early and let me on so I could make sure that everything worked. And I thought, well, okay, but in the back of my mind I thought, is 15 minutes really going to be enough in case there's a problem? So just to play on the safe side, I arranged a practice Zoom call with my oldest son, just for the heck of it. And sure enough, there was a problem with my speakers. They wouldn't work on the Zoom. It took us about 10 minutes to figure out why the connection wasn't working. Now, that we might have been able to solve that, the moderator and I, right before the call. But would I really have wanted that kind of nervousness? Can you imagine how frustrated I might have been at when the call began and 100 people dialed in, and here I am trying to figure out how to get the speakers to work? What if I didn't get the speakers to work in time, and they got to watch me being frustrated and reaching under my desk and trying to fiddle with the wires? Do you really think they would have taken me as an expert in effective communication on Zoom calls if I couldn't even get my audio to work? Of course not. Of course not. That's why you do a practice call ahead of time when you're the presenter. The other reason why you do it is that you can't really trust the moderator when he says, "Oh, I'll let you in early to test everything," because it turned out he didn't know how to do that. So when I tried to dial in, I was told to wait until the call began on time. And we talked on the phone, and I said, I really would like to get on and make sure everything works just one last time. And he couldn't figure out how to do that at his end. There was a problem at his end. So I could not get on until everybody else got on. And then it was boom, the call began. Again, what would have happened if at 2 o'clock, when the call was officially beginning and 100 people dialed in, and I couldn't have audio working? It would have been an absolute mess. And it certainly would have undermined any credibility I have as an authority on how to handle Zoom calls. I always tell you, check your equipment beforehand, because there's a danger the equipment's not going to work for you. The other thing you might want to do, and I also put this in my workshops, is talk to the moderator ahead of time and say, listen, who is going to be dialing in? What level experience might they have? What kind of presentations do they do? Do they do regular presentations? Do they do stand-up presentations? Is it mostly on conference calls? Do they speak to the public, or is it mostly internal? And he gave me a lot of good information so that I could fashion the workshop a little bit more. It turned out that most of the people on the call were actually doing conference calls in their groups, so it's internal, and it's pretty informal, and it's almost all Zoom, very few in-person presentations. So I fashioned my workshop that way. Now, whatever you might be doing on a conference call, if you know ahead of time this kind of information, it can make you more effective as well with your presentation if you know a little bit more about your audience. The other thing that I did was I gave the moderator my details ahead of time. I said, rather than me introduce myself by talking about my past and my book and my experience, I said, just read these 2 or 3 lines when you introduce me. So this way, he was very happy because he got something to read. He was able to introduce me properly. And I actually do think there's a little bit more authority when a moderator or the host gives your details, your curriculum vitae, as they, just so to speak, because it just lends a little bit more credibility, I think, rather than me talking about who I am. Anyway, make sure you check your equipment. If you don't, please try to explain why in the comments down below you don't bother to check your equipment, because I'd really be interested in why anybody would not do that ahead of time. But if you don't do it, please let me know. And if you do it, I'd be curious to see if you've ever been able to escape a bad situation just like I did this week. Anyway, please like and share this video. Share it so that other people who do Zoom calls will check their equipment before they get on the call, and subscribe, because that's something that YouTube and I really would appreciate. And until next week, take care.